What if I told you that most businesses fail not because they lack talent, not because they lack funding, but because they build products nobody wants? Imagine spending months or even years of your life creating something, pouring your heart and soul into it, only to discover that customers simply don't care. This is the harsh reality facing 90% of startups today. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody talks about. We've been approaching entrepreneurship completely wrong. We treat it like gambling. We throw resources at ideas and hope something sticks. We rely on gut feelings, chase perfection, and refuse to test our assumptions until it's too late. What if there was a scientific method to building businesses, a proven system that eliminates waste, maximizes learning, and dramatically increases your chances of success? Today, we're diving deep into Eric Ries's groundbreaking book, The Lean Startup. This isn't just another business book. This is a complete paradigm shift in how we think about innovation, entrepreneurship, and building sustainable companies. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear roadmap to validate your ideas, avoid catastrophic mistakes, and build something people actually want. Before we begin, if you're serious about transforming your life through actionable business wisdom, hit that follow button for Millionaire Playbook right now. We don't just summarize books here. We extract life-changing strategies you can implement immediately. This channel is your shortcut to the knowledge that separates dreamers from achievers. Now, let's get started. Part 1. The fundamental problem with traditional entrepreneurship. Let me start by telling you Eric Ries's story because it perfectly illustrates why we need a completely new approach to building businesses. Eric Ries was a young, ambitious entrepreneur who co-founded a startup with brilliant technology, a talented team, and what seemed like a perfect idea. They were building a way for college students to create online profiles to share with employers. Sound familiar? They were essentially trying to build what became LinkedIn, but they failed spectacularly. The company limped along for months before dying a slow, painful death. Eric describes the moment he realized his company was going to fail. It was raining, and he and his co-founder were arguing in the street, unable to even agree on which direction to walk. They parted ways, heading in opposite directions, a perfect metaphor for their company's demise. Here's what haunted Eric. They had done everything traditional business wisdom told them to do. They had a great product, amazing technology, a solid business plan, and the right idea at the right time. So why did they fail? The answer is simple but devastating. They built something nobody wanted. After this failure, Eric co-founded IMVU, a virtual world company. This time, he did things differently. Instead of spending years building the perfect product, they released a crude, barely functional version in just 6 months. It was full of bugs, it lacked features, it wasn't cool. But here's what made all the difference. They put it in front of real customers immediately. They learned, they adapted, they pivoted, and IMVU went on to become massively successful, generating millions in revenue and serving millions of customers. The difference wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, it was methodology. Eric realized that startups need a completely different approach than traditional businesses. They need a scientific method for dealing with extreme uncertainty. The lean startup definition and mindset. First, let's be clear about what a startup actually is. Eric Ries defines a startup as a human institution designed to create new products and services under extreme uncertainty. Notice 3 key words here. Human institution, meaning it's about people and systems, new products and services, meaning innovation is at the core, and extreme uncertainty, which is the defining characteristic that separates startups from established businesses. This definition means startups exist everywhere. You don't need to be in a garage or in Silicon Valley. If you're working on something new and uncertain inside a Fortune 500 company, you're doing startup work. If you're launching a new service in your local community, you're a startup. Entrepreneurship is not about age, location, or industry. It's about dealing with uncertainty. Here's the critical insight. Traditional management practices were designed for stable, predictable environments. They work brilliantly when you know who your customers are, what they want, and how to deliver it efficiently. But startups operate in the exact opposite conditions. You don't know who your customer is. You don't know what they want. You don't even know if your solution actually solves a real problem. In this environment, traditional planning and forecasting are not just useless, they're actively harmful because they give you false confidence and waste precious resources. The core principle is validated learning. This is the most important concept in the entire book. Listen carefully. Startups don't exist just to make products. They don't exist just to make money. They exist to learn how to build a sustainable business as quickly and efficiently as possible. Every activity, every feature, every marketing campaign should be designed to test a hypothesis and generate validated learning. Let me explain what validated learning means. It's learning backed by empirical data from real customers. It's not just any learning. You can learn things that are completely irrelevant. You can convince yourself you're learning when you're actually just rationalizing failure. Validated learning must be demonstrated by positive improvements in your core metrics. It's scientific, it's measurable, it's real. At IMView, Eric and his team initially built their product based on what they thought customers wanted. They assumed people would want to use their 3D avatar chat as an add-on to existing instant messaging networks. They spent months building technology to make this work. They were convinced it was brilliant. But when they put it in front of actual customers, they discovered a painful truth. Customers hated it. Nobody wanted an add-on to their existing IM client. They wanted a standalone network. They wanted to make new friends, not chat with existing ones. Here's the devastating part. All those months of work, thousands of lines of code, countless meetings and debates were completely wasted. Eric asks a haunting question. If the goal was to learn these critical insights about customers, why did it take so long? Could they have learned the same lessons with far less effort? The answer is absolutely yes. This realization led to the core of validated learning. Anything you do that doesn't contribute to learning what customers actually want is waste, pure waste. Your job as an entrepreneur is to find out what creates value for customers as quickly and efficiently as possible. Build, measure, learn, the feedback loop. Now let's talk about the engine that powers the lean startup, the build, measure, learn feedback loop. This is your operating system for innovation. Here's how it works. You start with ideas and assumptions. You build a minimum viable product to test those assumptions. You measure how real customers respond. You learn from the data. Then you decide whether to pivot or persevere. And you repeat this loop as fast as possible. The faster you can go through this loop, the faster you learn, and the faster you can build a sustainable business. Most startups fail because they spend too much time in the build phase and not enough time in the measure and learn phases. They fall in love with their product instead of falling in love with solving customer problems. Let me break down each component. Build, the minimum viable product. The minimum viable product, or MVP, is one of the most misunderstood concepts in entrepreneurship. An MVP isn't about building a cheap, crappy version of your vision. It's about building the smallest thing possible that allows you to start the learning process with real customers. The key question is, what is the minimum amount of effort required to learn what you need to learn? Not what's the minimum product, what's the minimum learning tool? Let me give you powerful examples from the book. Drew Houston, the founder of Dropbox, faced a challenging problem. Their product required solving significant technical hurdles, building cloud infrastructure, and ensuring high reliability. It would take years to build. How could they validate customer demand before investing all that time and money? He made a simple 3-minute video demonstrating how the product would work. He didn't build the product, he just showed what it would do. He targeted the video at technology early adopters and filled it with inside jokes and references that community would appreciate. The video went viral in that community. Their beta waiting list exploded from 5,000 people to 75,000 people overnight. The video was their MVP. It validated that customers wanted the solution before they built anything. Another example is Food on the Table, a meal planning service. Today, they serve thousands of grocery stores across the country, with complex algorithms matching recipes to sales and customer preferences. But how did they start? With a single customer. The CEO would meet one customer each week at their preferred grocery store, manually select recipes based on what was on sale and the customer's preferences, and hand-deliver a packet with shopping lists and recipes. Then he would collect a check for $9.95. This sounds incredibly inefficient, and it was by traditional standards, but measured by validated learning, it was brilliant. Each week, they learned more about what customers actually needed. Each customer made it easier to get the next one. Eventually, they understood the problem so well that they could start building scalable technology. But they started with the concierge approach, serving customers manually to learn. The lesson here is profound. Don't hide in your garage building the perfect product. Get in front of customers immediately, even if you have to deliver the service manually. Learn what they actually need, not what you think they need. Measure. Innovation accounting. Most startups use what Eric calls vanity metrics: total users, total revenue, page views. These numbers always go up and to the right if you keep adding users. They make you feel good, but tell you nothing about whether your business model actually works. Innovation accounting is about measuring progress in a way that actually matters. You need actionable metrics that help you make decisions. Eric introduces a powerful framework using cohort analysis. Instead of looking at total numbers, look at cohorts. A cohort is a group of customers who signed up at the same time. Track how each cohort behaves over time. Are they more engaged than previous cohorts? Are they converting better? Are they referring more friends? This tells you if your experiments are actually improving the business. At IMVU, they tracked 4 critical metrics: registration rate, activation rate, retention rate, and referral rate. Every change they made was measured against these metrics. If a new feature improved retention, they knew it was valuable. If it didn't move the numbers, it was waste, no matter how cool it seemed. The power of innovation accounting is that it creates learning milestones instead of traditional business milestones. Instead of saying we'll launch the product in 6 months, you say we'll improve our activation rate by 20% in the next month. This keeps you focused on learning what actually matters. You also need to distinguish between actionable metrics and vanity metrics. An actionable metric demonstrates clear cause and effect. When we changed this feature, retention improved by X%. A vanity metric makes you feel good but doesn't help you make decisions. Another critical concept is the split test, also called A/B testing. You create 2 versions of something, show one version to half your customers and the other version to the other half, then measure which performs better. This is how you rigorously test your hypotheses. You're not guessing, you're doing science. Learn, pivot, or persevere. This brings us to the hardest decision any entrepreneur faces. When do you pivot? When do you persevere? A pivot is not just a change, it's a structured course correction designed to test a new fundamental hypothesis about your product, strategy, and engine of growth. It's based on validated learning that tells you your current approach isn't working. Eric identifies several types of pivots. Zoom-in pivot, where a single feature becomes the whole product. Zoom-out pivot, where the product becomes just one feature of something larger. Customer segment pivot, where you realize you're solving the right problem but for the wrong customers. Customer need pivot, where you realize the problem you're solving isn't important, but you've discovered a related problem that is. Platform pivot, switching between being an application and being a platform. Business architecture pivot, moving from high margin low volume to low margin high volume or vice versa. Value capture pivot, changing how you make money. Engine of growth pivot, changing your growth strategy. Channel pivot, changing how you reach customers. Technology pivot, achieving the same solution with different technology. The key to knowing when to pivot is having clear metrics and learning milestones. If your experiments are consistently failing to move your metrics toward your goals, it's time to pivot. If your optimization efforts are showing diminishing returns, it's time to pivot. If you're stuck in what Eric calls the land of the living dead, achieving just enough success to stay alive, but not living up to your potential, it's definitely time to pivot. The story of Vodazone illustrates this perfectly. David Benetti built a social network for verified voters. He started with clear hypotheses about registration, activation, retention, and referral rates. After months of optimization and split testing, he improved registration from 5% to 17% and activation from 17% to 90%. Impressive, right? But retention stayed at only 8% and referral at only 6%. The optimization was working, but the fundamental strategy wasn't viable. Instead of continuing to optimize a flawed strategy, David pivoted. He realized that voters didn't want a social network. They wanted tools to contact their elected representatives about causes they cared about. He pivoted to a simple contact tool. The new approach immediately showed better metrics. That's how you know a pivot was right. Your experiments become more productive. Part 2. Acceleration. Once you've learned to steer, once you understand the build, measure, learn loop, you need to accelerate. You need to go through that loop faster and faster. The power of small batches. This concept comes from lean manufacturing at Toyota. Large batches seem more efficient. You can do one type of work for a long time, which feels productive. But large batches hide problems, delay feedback, and actually slow you down in the long run. Eric uses a simple example. Imagine you need to stuff, seal, and stamp 100 envelopes. Most people would fold all 100 letters first, then stuff all 100 envelopes, then seal all 100, then stamp all 100. This feels efficient because you're not switching tasks. But now imagine you discover at the end that you used the wrong letter. You've wasted work on all 100 envelopes. In contrast, if you complete one envelope at a time, folding, stuffing, sealing, and stamping each one before moving to the next, you discover problems immediately. Yes, you switch tasks more often, but you catch mistakes after one envelope, not 100. At IMVU, they applied this to product development. Instead of releasing hundreds of features every few months, they released features one at a time, sometimes making 50 changes per day. Each change went through automated testing and was deployed immediately to real customers. If something broke, they knew exactly what caused it and could fix it immediately. This is called continuous deployment. The key insight is that problems are cheaper to fix when caught early. In large batches, a problem discovered late affects everything in the batch. In small batches, a problem affects only one item. This allows you to maintain quality while moving incredibly fast. The 3 engines of growth. Every startup is powered by an engine of growth. Understanding which engine powers your business is critical to scaling effectively. Eric identifies 3 primary engines. The sticky engine of growth is about retention. You acquire customers and keep them for a long time. The key metrics are customer acquisition rate and customer attrition rate. If you acquire customers faster than you lose them, you grow. Companies like Netflix and subscription businesses run on the sticky engine of growth. The focus is on creating a product so good that customers don't want to leave. The viral engine of growth is about customers bringing you more customers. Every customer who signs up brings other customers through referrals, social sharing, or network effects. The key metric is the viral coefficient. If every customer brings more than one additional customer, you grow exponentially. Facebook in its early days ran on the viral engine. Hotmail, with its famous tagline at the bottom of every email, ran on the viral engine. The paid engine of growth is about being able to profitably pay for customer acquisition. You calculate the lifetime value of a customer, subtract the cost to acquire that customer, and if the margin is positive, you reinvest it to acquire more customers. Google and most advertising-based businesses run on the paid engine. The critical insight is that you must focus on one engine at a time. Trying to optimize all 3 simultaneously is a recipe for confusion and mediocrity. Pick the engine that makes the most sense for your business model, then obsess over optimizing it. The 5 whys and adaptive organizations. As you scale and accelerate, you'll encounter new problems. How do you build process and infrastructure without becoming bureaucratic? How do you invest in prevention without over-engineering? Eric introduces the 5 whys, a technique from Toyota. When a problem occurs, ask why 5 times to get to the root cause, then make a proportional investment in prevention at each level of the hierarchy. For example, at IMVU, a new release broke a feature for customers. Why? A server failed. Why did the server fail? An engineer used a subsystem incorrectly. Why did he use it incorrectly? He didn't know. Why wasn't he trained? His manager didn't believe in training because the team was too busy. Now here's the T. Make proportional investments. Fix the server, make the subsystem less error-prone, train the engineer, have a conversation with the manager about training, but make the investment proportional to the severity of the problem. If it's a minor glitch, invest an hour in prevention. If it happens again, invest more. This way, you build processes and infrastructure incrementally exactly when needed, without over-engineering. This creates an adaptive organization that automatically adjusts to current conditions. When you're moving too fast and creating problems, the 5 whys forces you to slow down and invest in prevention. As those investments pay off, you naturally speed up again. It's an automatic speed regulator. Part 3. Practical implementation. Now, let's talk about how you actually apply all of this in your life, starting today. Step 1. Identify your leap of faith assumptions. Every business plan has assumptions. Most are mundane and unimportant, but buried in there are a handful of leap of faith assumptions. These are assumptions that, if wrong, mean your entire venture fails. Identify them clearly. The 2 most important are the value hypothesis and the growth hypothesis. The value hypothesis asks, do customers find your product valuable? The growth hypothesis asks, how will you acquire and retain customers at scale? For Facebook, the value hypothesis was validated by the fact that half their users came back every single day. The growth hypothesis was validated by how fast they took over college campuses without spending money on marketing. Write down your leap of faith assumptions explicitly. Don't hide behind vague language or analogies. State them clearly in the present tense. Once they're clear, you can design experiments to test them. Step 2. Build your minimum viable product. Remember, an MVP is not about building a product, it's about starting the learning process with minimum effort. Ask yourself, what is the riskiest assumption I need to test first? Then ask, what is the smallest thing I can build or do to test that assumption? Maybe it's a landing page that describes your product and asks people to sign up. Maybe it's a video, like Dropbox. Maybe it's manually delivering the service, like food on the table. Maybe it's just talking to potential customers and showing them mock-ups. The point is to get in front of real customers as fast as possible and start learning. Do not fall into the trap of building in secret for months or years. Do not wait until it's perfect. Perfect is the enemy of learning. Your first version should make you slightly embarrassed. If you're not embarrassed by your first release, you waited too long. Step 3. Establish your baseline metrics. Before you start optimizing anything, establish a baseline. What are your current registration, activation, retention, and referral rates? What percentage of visitors become customers? What percentage of customers come back? How much does it cost to acquire a customer versus their lifetime value? You cannot improve what you don't measure, and you need a baseline to know if your experiments are actually working. Set up cohort analysis from day 1. Track how each group of customers behaves over time. Step 4. Run experiments and optimize. Now start running experiments. Change one thing at a time. Measure the impact on your core metrics. Use split testing to ensure you're seeing real cause and effect, not just random variation. Keep a learning journal. Document every experiment. What did you change? What did you expect to happen? What actually happened? What did you learn? This creates a knowledge base that compounds over time. Focus on achieving small, consistent improvements. You're not looking for home runs. You're looking for systematic progress through validated learning. A 5% improvement here, a 10% improvement there. These compound rapidly. Step 5. Decide to pivot or persevere. This is where most entrepreneurs struggle. They become emotionally attached to their original vision and refuse to pivot even when the data clearly says they should. Or they pivot too quickly before they've given their strategy a fair chance. The key is to use learning milestones, not time-based milestones. Don't say, we'll decide in 6 months. Say, we'll decide when we've run X number of experiments or when we've achieved Y level of improvement in our metrics. Let the data drive the decision, not arbitrary timelines or emotional attachment. If your optimization efforts are showing strong results, persevere and keep optimizing. If they're showing diminishing returns or no results, consider a pivot. If you're consistently failing to move the needle despite trying different approaches, it's definitely time to pivot. Step 6. Accelerate through small batches. As you find product-market fit and start to scale, resist the temptation to move to large batches. Keep your feedback loops tight. Keep releasing changes frequently. Keep measuring continuously. The companies that win are not the ones with the best initial idea. They're the ones that learn and adapt the fastest. Invest in automated testing and quality control systems. Build your immune system so you can deploy changes rapidly without breaking things. Use the 5 whys to build infrastructure and process incrementally as needed. The mindset shifts. Beyond the tactics, the lean startup requires fundamental mindset shifts. First, embrace validated learning over execution. Your job is not to build what's in the plan. Your job is to figure out what should be built. This requires scientific experimentation, not just hard work. Second, embrace failure as a teacher. Every experiment that fails teaches you something valuable if you're measuring the right things. The only true failure is failing to learn. Third, embrace speed over perfection. Done is better than perfect when you're dealing with uncertainty. You learn more from an imperfect product in customers' hands than a perfect product on your whiteboard. Fourth, embrace metrics over opinions. The customer doesn't care about your opinions or vision statements. They care about whether your product solves their problem. Let the data tell you what works. Fifth, embrace pivots as strategic tools. Pivoting is not failure, it's structured learning. The best entrepreneurs pivot multiple times on their path to success. Real-world application. Let me make this concrete with daily, weekly, and monthly systems you can implement. Daily habit. Spend 15 minutes reviewing yesterday's metrics. What moved? What didn't? What's one experiment you can run today to learn something new? Weekly system. Every Friday, review the week's experiments. What did you learn? What should you do next week? Are you making progress toward your learning milestones? If not, what needs to change? Monthly system. At the end of each month, do a thorough pivot or persevere analysis. Are you seeing steady improvement in your core metrics? Are your experiments becoming more productive? If yes, persevere with optimizations. If no, consider whether a pivot is needed. Quarterly system. Every 3 months, step back and look at the big picture. Are you building a sustainable business? Do you understand your engine of growth? What are the biggest risks and uncertainties you need to address in the next quarter? The key is to make this systematic, not random. The lean startup is not about chaos or winging it. It's about bringing scientific discipline to entrepreneurship. Powerful conclusion. The lean startup is more than a business methodology. It's a fundamentally different way of thinking about innovation. It's about replacing hope and intuition with evidence and learning. It's about building businesses that customers actually want instead of products we think they should want. The central insight that changes everything is this. The goal of a startup is not to build products. The goal is to learn how to build a sustainable business as quickly and efficiently as possible. Everything else follows from that. Your success is not measured by how much you build, but by how much you learn. Your productivity is not measured by features shipped, but by validated learning achieved. We live in an era of unprecedented opportunity. We can build almost anything we can imagine. The critical question no longer is can we build it, but should we build it? The lean startup gives you a framework to answer that question before you waste years of your life and millions of dollars. The waste in modern innovation is staggering. Countless products built that nobody wants. Countless hours spent optimizing solutions to problems that don't matter. Countless businesses that fail not because they lack resources, but because they lack a scientific method for dealing with uncertainty. You don't have to be part of that statistic. You can be part of the new generation of entrepreneurs who apply scientific thinking to entrepreneurship, who test assumptions rigorously, who learn from customers continuously, who pivot when needed and persevere when it matters. The principles in this book work. They've been proven by thousands of startups across every industry. IMVU, Dropbox, Zappos, Groupon, Food on the Table, and countless others have used these methods to build successful, sustainable businesses. But principles don't build businesses. You do. Knowledge without action is worthless. So here's what I want you to do right now. Don't just close this video and move on. Take action. Identify one idea you've been thinking about. Write down your leap of faith assumptions. Design a minimum viable product to test the riskiest assumption. Then go test it this week, not next month, not when it's perfect, this week. Remember, the only way to reduce the risk of building something nobody wants is to build in small batches, measure continuously, learn rapidly, and pivot when necessary. The only way to validate your assumptions is to test them with real customers. The only way to build a sustainable business is to validated learning. The world needs more entrepreneurs who understand these principles. The world needs more innovation that actually matters. The world needs people who can build businesses that solve real problems for real customers. You now have the knowledge, you have the framework, you have the tools. The only question is, will you use them? Will you apply validated learning to your ideas? Will you have the courage to test your assumptions and pivot when needed? Will you commit to building something people actually want instead of something you think they should want? If you found value in this deep dive, subscribe to Millionaire Playbook right now. Hit that notification bell. We're building a community of action takers, not just idea collectors. Share this with one person who needs to hear it. Comment below with your biggest takeaway or the one assumption you're going to test this week. The lean startup method works, but only if you work it. Now go build something people actually want. Start learning, start testing, start building your future. I'll see you in the next video.